Before we begin, I want to state that this video is not to hate on Warframe. I absolutely love the game, and it's the game that I've sunk the most time into, and I only want the best for it. But that being said, we need to talk about some of these major issues that have been coming out, and just the fact that it seems like DE isn't listening to absolutely anyone in the community and just keeps throwing every recommendation that they get out the window, even if it's the perfect fix. Originally, this whole video was going to be talking about the Venari issue that came out recently, and it only got worse whenever they actually responded and said what they were going to be changing, or at least what they have planned for changing. Of course, if you don't know, the main thing that happened was that Venari was pretty much nerfed because they removed the ability for her to heal objectives over time, which was in the tips tab, which of course caused a lot of people to get very upset because, as stated, it was in intended use. That was what you were supposed to use Venari for when you were on healing. You could heal defense objectives, but they removed it saying that it was an exploit, which would be fine if they removed it just for Oplinks and Scarlet Spear, because of course in the new event for Scarlet Spear they have the ability where you can heal someone's Oplink by paying 75,000 credits to them, which is still dumb, but I do get why they did this. But of course, as we know, that's not what they did. They just removed the ability completely, and everyone got very upset because Venari is already a pretty underused and weak companion in the game because it just doesn't deal a lot of damage, it has a mediocre AI, and whenever you switch to healing, it kind of just stands there sometimes. But once you go through what they responded with, where they're essentially going to be talking about how they plan on changing healing targets and defense objectives over time, it just kind of strikes you off, and like they almost don't even know how their own game works. Now, if you go through it, you'll see that everything essentially is getting changed, other than a few things. So for example, Gara's Mending Splinters is not going to be changing at all. It's going to be healing 3 health per second for each active splinter. But as you keep going, you'll see some Warframes that are actually getting a pretty nice buff, at least if you look at it at face value, such as Hydroid, where if you're using Curative Undertow, whenever you go into it, you'll heal 30% HP for every 1.5 seconds when an ally stands on it, and now, whenever you actually use that on an objective, it's going to heal for 100 per 1.5 seconds the ally is on it. You can look at that and say, oh, that's nice, they're going to be making it so that you can heal, but as you go down, you'll notice that some frames are just completely useless in a way. So if you look at Volt, Capacitance is going to be able to give shields to the defense objectives, but they say it's capped to only 250. Now in the comments, Rebecca said that this would be scaling with mods, but the problem is that where would the cap be moved to? Because you can max capacitance to go up to 12.36% whenever it comes to the shield conversion, which is really nice whenever you're playing as Volt because, you know, all of your allies get that shield buff. What's the cap going to be when it comes to the defense objective? Is it still going to be 250? Will it move by however much percentage it moved up by? Because no matter where it really sits, that's not going to be a lot of shield for the defense objective. Now sure, maybe if you're just doing some normal star chart stuff, that's gonna help, but whenever you get into endgame content, that's just going to be absolutely useless as the enemies will just shred right through it. Another thing that they state specifically is that it won't be able to get over shields, which kind of, you know, eliminates the whole point of using capacitance on Volt in the first place. But for Volt, of course, that's going to work just fine on him. It's just for the defense objectives, they're not going to be able to get that. So it just doesn't really add up on what they're trying to do here. So like I was saying, Volt is the one that is getting something that's sort of a buff, but also not completely. It's just a slight buff, essentially. I mean, it's very simple to start with, and that's why I wanted to talk about him first, because the next one is a straight up nerf that is going to ruin an entire focus school in the game, and that's of course Vazarin's Protective Dash. Now currently in game, this works at full effect on the defense objectives, where if you dash into them they get 5 seconds of invulnerability and get 60% healing over 5 seconds, which is incredible and probably the best way to heal things in the game, other than maybe Trinity. But they are completely neutering this by making it so that it's not going to have invulnerability anymore, and it's going to heal for 500 over 5 seconds and can't stack. The problem with this is that it doesn't scale. So if you're doing really high level missions where the defense objective has like 50,000 HP, it's only going to be getting 500 for 5 seconds, which is only 2,500 HP, which is absolutely nothing. You're not going to be able to defend the objective. It just entirely defeats the purpose of using this focus school where it's all about healing and defending, but it's just not going to be able to do that the same way that it used to. Of course, maybe I don't understand why you're supposed to use that school. Maybe it's only for Warframes because it's Warframe. You're playing and you're trying to defend your allies, and you shouldn't focus on the defense objective. But then it's like, a lot of the times when you're doing defense objectives, you're defending living things. Like, why can't you use it at the full effect? It should get the same effect that you do whenever you use it on yourself. All of this would be completely fine if they just decided that this is what they're going to put and see what people say about it. But they didn't. If you go to the bottom of this post, it says we're aiming to ship this bigger revision on defendable objective healing in a near hotfix. Why would you do that? This post was made a day ago, and they're not even looking at what people think, what they're going to do. They didn't even give anyone like a proper amount of time to react to it, and they just ignore everybody. Now, maybe in a day or two, they'll announce that they're going to be holding off on it and making sure everything scales properly, but we all know that's not how they work. DE says what they're going to do, and they either do it or they do it and it's absolutely awful. They never really don't do anything. Like, maybe they'll say something and then forget about it, but I think they're going to go through with this, and that's scary because it just shows how little they care about what everyone in the community thinks. 90% of the time, whenever they go through with a major change in the game, it's because of some big YouTuber. And look, I'm not trying to change the game. I don't want to say what I think should be done to the game. What I'm trying to say right here is that DE needs to listen to the community. If everyone in the community is saying to do something that I don't like, then I still want Digital Extremes to go through and add what the majority of the players want, because that's what's going to make the game live the longest, is if they actively listen to the community. And if I don't like it, I may talk about it, but I don't want them to change it unless there's something that can be done that would make everybody happy, but that's probably not going to happen that often. And if I have to suffer because a majority of people want something, I don't care. If it makes them happy, they should get that, especially if there's, thousands of people saying that. But of course, that's not how it works at Digital Extremes. They just listen to a lot of the bigger content creators, it seems like, and maybe they think that they're megaphones for a lot of the people out there, but they're just not. Now, there are a lot of amazing Warframe creators out there, but there are also some absolutely awful ones that will whine and cry until they get what they want, and that's just not how the game should work. I get it, sometimes you want to just shut somebody up, but the proper way to do that isn't to waste your time designing, something like a mod for them that is completely useless for 99% of the player base, because there are so many other things that you could do that would make everybody happy, including that person, as long as you just take the time to work on it and, put all of the brains together, ask the community what they would want to fix a certain thing in the game. And there are many really easy and great ways to do this. Like you guys already do, you could easily just make a giant poll and ask everyone what mod they would like the most, have a few ideas laid out, or you could have it so everyone votes on their favorite idea that someone can throw out there. And those were the only things that I could really think of on the top of my head that would actually be effective and work pretty well. But you guys get what I'm saying. The community can be used a lot more to help the game itself and make sure that DE isn't adding stuff in that is completely useless and that people don't want. But yeah, that was pretty much it for this video. I do have other ideas that I want to do that are pretty similar to this and talking other ways that I think Digital Extremes could improve the game. But like I said, I don't want them to just look at me and use me as a way to fix the game, because that's not what I want at all. I want them to listen to their actual community and not just these giant creators. And it's like, I get it, you want to appease content creators because they can bring in a lot of people and money for your game, but if you really want your game to live as long as possible and, blossom into the best thing that it could be, you need to listen to the diehard fans and the community that you guys have actively built, or else it's just going to crumble out from underneath you. But yeah, that's where I'm going to leave it today. If you guys did enjoy that video, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more Warframe content. Love you guys. Stay safe.